walking past. Huh. Good. So lovely. So I think you're all back in your box. Literally, you're back in your box. Feels like Sesame Street. What was I going to say? Oh, it's autumn now. And autumn is a season that's associated with lots of wind, lots of space. So space, wind, air. It's an element of air that's quite prevalent in nature and also within us. So you might notice that your skin might feel a little dry, or your eyes might feel a little dry, even your hair, and your bones, your joints could also be a little bit more clicky or a little bit more. There's more noise, literally. So that's kind of air bubbles trap. So today we're working a little bit with that air element and turning it upside down. Not in terms of doing a headstand, but actually bring those grounding earthy qualities back. So it's like that yin and yang, that black and white, to have that counter balance to bring us back into balance. And we also, human beings are also made up of those elements: fire, water, air, and earth. And each of us have a different almost a distribution of those elements. So you might have more air in yourself. It comes from Ayurveda. So even in terms of food, we might crave a bit more hearty stews, soups, and so forth. So keep those oily and warming foods going to balance your own constitution as well. So I'd love to start with the chair in terms of breath awareness again. And as we know, repetition is always the best way to ingrain learning. So so sit once more on your chair. So for those who were here last week, or even just joined any session I ran last week, you may be aware of, it's not just sitting on your chair, but there's a certain art of sitting on your chair to actually make changes in the way you feel on a physical, mental, and even emotional level. So kind of just have a little bit of a wiggle around. See if it feels slightly different compared to how you usually sit. So as we start with that breath awareness, of course, we generally do it on the floor, but in order to give you some tools to ingrain into your life, it's nice to use kind of real life scenarios. So feet on the ground, notice maybe if they're even slightly back, so maybe you're tilting forward, perhaps bring them a little bit further out, so you have a good stable stance. And once more, bring your hands onto your pelvis, have a little bit of that tilt forward and backward. So you might get that sensation of how your spine literally follows suit. So it's where more the anchor point, the focus is the pelvic bowl, where you round and you tilt forward. So start with a little bit more bigger movements, and then gradually let them become very subtle, very small. So until you find again that sweet spot, literally where you sit quite upright, where the spine almost effortlessly, or the vertebrae stack on top of each other. So you're probably a little bit further forward on your chair as well. So you can bring once more one hand onto your belly, one hand onto your heart. So, and find a position of your arms that doesn't feel strenuous. So release the shoulders away from your ears. So your eyes can be closed, or you can have a soft gaze. So just even taking stock how you feel on this Wednesday morning. So like the foundation of a house. Start from your feet. Really feel the soles connecting to the earth. So it's our connection with the earth. Maybe imagine there's roots coming out of the soles of your feet, and they're kind of piercing through the floor, depending what level you're on. So literally just allow those roots to find their way all the way down into the soil. So being barefoot is the best you can actually do to your feet and also to your health. And then allow your awareness to wander up your shins, your calves, your knees and thighs. Feeling the hand that's resting on your belly. Maybe you already feel that warmth that's emanating from your hand. Continue your journey up through your rib cage, your chest, hearts, lungs, shoulders. Notice if your arms feel heavy. And then notice if there's any tension in your neck, in your jaw, your cheekbones, your eyes, your forehead. So we're literally working through the layers of an onion. So we have different sheets, different layers. So we are starting with the physical layer. So that's the most tangible layer. And then moving one layer further down towards our core. That's the breath level. So where we take all that energy, and energy is not just the breath, but it's also food, it's information, it's thoughts. So sense your breath. How is it flowing in through your nose and perhaps out through your nose? And then let the breath become a little bit deeper. So allow the breath to really rise into your hands. Feel the belly, the chest rising. And on the exhale, feel it softening, that contracting of your torso. So a few rounds here as you draw the breath deeper into your belly, your navel center, lower abdomen. And as you exhale, almost visualize you squeeze that belly button back towards your spine. So that focus on contracting the abdominals on the exhale helps us to get rid of some stagnant, old energy. So just focusing on those deep, full breaths. So when the upper body is upright, we are able to breathe a little easier. So notice if you're slightly collapsing it. And if that's the case, draw the shoulders back, lifting the head slightly up as well. So perhaps the breath already helps to soothe the nervous system. If you felt a little anxious, so again, digging a little deeper into another layer. Emotions, thoughts, feelings. So let the breath be that bridge between that physical body. So taking it in through the nose and let it connect us to those more calming qualities. Where we can initiate changes for our mind. So feel that rising of your hands on the inhale. And that softening, contracting on the exhale. Let's stay with your breath for another 3 rounds. Good. And from here, so again, the card was today will feel peaceful like a lake. So perhaps embody those qualities. So it's like when we throw a stone into a lake, it has those ripples. So that's the almost the thoughts and emotions that are disturbing us. But once the stone, that little pebble maybe drops all the way down towards the ground. There's that stillness, so the water doesn't get disturbed. So from here, release your hands, maybe have a little bit of a wiggle, maybe just do anything to come back, open your eyes as well. And we're doing a little bit of joint release movement. So literally starting at the top of our head to get rid of those air bubbles that may cause a little bit more clicking. So starting with your neck, so it's a very delicate joint. So I avoid really rolling, circling the head quite a bit. So perhaps come into that neck stretch and still maintain posture ideally if that's possible. So tilting your ear to one side and already check in, how does that feel in your neck? So keeping the shoulders drawn back, the chest lifts. So if you want to adjust, perhaps always do it from the pelvis. Good. And then coming back to center, tilt your chin towards your chest, looking down. And then coming back to center. So looking down again towards the floor, coming back up. Once more looking down. Stay, breathe into maybe that imaginary hand resting on your belly. So those deep belly breaths without forcing the breath out into the belly. And then coming back to center. Look over towards your right shoulder. Coming back to center and looking over your left shoulder. You might actually want to try it with your eyes closed. So given our muscles, our eye muscles actually connect to the back of our skull. Once our eyes are open, there's more of a restriction actually turning your neck, turning your head. So you may feel difference if you have your eyes closed. It feels like you are able to turn the head a little bit more towards the side. So those functions are important when we drive a car or when we cross the road, that movement through the neck. Lovely. Coming back to center, moving through the shoulders. So shoulder joints, bring in some shoulder circles, shoulder rolls. And we probably always have a certain way of going. So you can rest your hands on your thighs, you can take them out to the sides, you can gradually make those movements bigger, larger. So notice if you're collapsing again. So let those arm movements really originate from your arms and from the back. Change directions, so going the opposite way. And if our arm movements are actually restricted, so we definitely work on arm strength, but it also comes down to the back. The back might be weak, the upper back might be weak, and we may be rounded forward. So that restricts actually bringing our arm up. So we need to loosen those tight muscles. Tight muscles, loosen up first and then strengthen them. Releasing your arms, giving them a little bit of a shake. Anything that feels like moving up into your neck, have a little bit of a tilt to come back to less tension. Elbow joints. So, and really bring your awareness to your elbow joint. Is it actually your arm circling or is it actually just your elbow joint? So it's a little bit of a nuance. You can circle, as if you're weightlift. So as if you're holding onto a weight, open and close, almost like bicep stretches. So one arm, then you're already doing two arms. Good, I should have done two arms. So you can isolate them. You can bring both arms in. Even here, coordination. If you want to make it more difficult, have one arm going one way and the opposite arm going the opposite way. So that's confuse your brain here as well. Good. And then coming back to center. So wrist movement. Bring your fingers together. You can make a fist if that feels good, unless you've got a bit of arthritis feels. So just keep them together in a way that feels good. Allow those wrists to circle. So there may be a little bit of clicking, maybe a bit of grinding. So really it's important. So consider your joints as crossroads, and anything that feels jammed probably makes you feel a little bit more stuck. So we are making sure that all that energy, the breath, can flow freely across the body. Release your wrists. Hold on to one forearm. So as here you see, there's probably more moving. So we are now isolating that wrist movement. Really hold steady onto one forearm and make that wrist really work a little harder. So you feel that resistance probably, that some bones or some muscles actually try to take over, because then it moves up into your elbow. Also change directions, so that strengthens the wrist. Good. Change sides. Give the first hand a little bit of a shake, holding tightly onto your opposite forearm. So at those joint releasing practices, if you have energy levels of -5, if that's what you do all day, that's absolutely fine. It makes a difference. So it's not those bigger movements, but more those subtle movements that really make a difference. Good. And then coming back to center. Finger joints open, close. You may even really draw them in. You might even hide your thumb, have your thumb on top. So have different movements. So perhaps even spreading those fingers individually. So it kind of is all different. So it still is hard work. So if you do it really fast, open, close, it gets quite tiring. Or then come back into space, into the pace feels okay, good. And then shake them out. Moving down the body. The hip joints. So you can lean a little bit further forward. You can have your feet a little wider as you allow your upper body to circle. So here it's a good way to get an idea if you maybe have even a sore back, if you pulled your back. So it's a very accessible way. And you have that ability here to keep the spine quite long. So if we're sitting on the floor, it might take a while to have the right maybe height of blankets or blocks to make sure that the pelvis feels supported. Change directions here as well. And once more, bring your brain in. Maybe imagine your upper body moves in a little bit of a figure of 8. So make a certain shape with your body. Allow the body to move a certain way. That gets us also out of autopilot. Good. And then coming back to center, continuing with that upper body movement, seated cat and cows. So it's that action where you tilt the pelvis forward, so as if you're sticking the bum out and also lifting the chest. So we're moving into that C-cave shape. And then rounding the spine, really, if you sit relatively towards the front of your chair, so you have that space to really round the spine, stretching your upper back. And then reversing again, lifting the chest, even drawing those elbows back, squeezing them towards your rib cage. So chin towards your chest, lifting the heart center up. Lovely, good straight backs. So you could do it at a kitchen table. You might even hold onto your knees, really straight arms. Allow yourself to really lean back, chin towards your chest. So it may feel like you're drawing those shoulder blades apart. Accentuate perhaps that stretch by drawing the breath into your upper back area. So as if you're working from the inside out, not just with the physical outer shell, but also from those deeper levels. And then once more, drawing the chest forward. Also stay here in that position for a little longer, drawing those elbows back, the chest lifts. So imagine your spine doing that half moon shape. So it's more of an active stretch. Good. And then coming back to center. So different movements of your spine, moving into that side stretch. So really mobilizing. Maybe there's a little bit of a click or a crack. Good. So again, adjust your posture if you feel like you're rolling back. So keeping the pelvis slightly tilted forward so that you might feel more length in your spine. Good. So as you tilt towards the right side, press the sitting bones more intensely in the opposite direction. So you get more length into the side body. Lovely. One more on each side. Good. And then bring your arms together. Big arm circles. As you bring your arms up, lengthen. Exhaling down. Good. Rounding. So imagine you're drawing a big sun. So mobilizing, even drawing those shoulders back. So we're creating strength and also helping to release some built tension. Good. One more movement here as you bring your arms up and then cross them over, holding onto your opposite shoulders. Have a little bit of a roll here. So leaning forward, almost just like hugging yourself here. Again, there may be more of a pull in your upper back as if you draw those shoulder wings apart. Good. And then reach your elbows up towards the ceiling. Big arm circle. Out to the sides and behind you. So hold on to the back of your chair. So whether it's the seat, whether it's the back, and that squeezing of those shoulder blades. At any point, release. So you can make it your own. You might even want to hold on to the chair as you lean a little bit further forward. So you're pulling literally in opposite direction. Your upper body draws you forward. Your arms pull you back. So perhaps allow those movements to create a little bit more of a release, maybe more strengthening. If you feel fatigued at any point, rest. So come back into what feels normal, what feels familiar for the body. So we're changing certain patterns. At any point, explore different heights of the back of your chair. So the higher you bring your arm up, the more intense the stretches as the shoulders squeeze further together. So you can do it, almost make it a daily practice to warm up the body, do a couple of arm circles, as that helps over time to adjust posture. Good. So from here, give your arms a bit of a shake. If your belt is close by, take the belt, please. So we're taking a little bit of a break, continuing that joint release movement and incorporating a little bit more upper body work. So perhaps bring the belt into position, or whatever you have, a scarf. So this is shoulder height, wider than shoulder height. So it doesn't have to be scientifically measured. So, and also stay seated on your chair. So sometimes we do it standing up, but having the pelvis more plugged into the chair makes it perhaps brings slightly different awareness into the body. So on the inhale, reach the arms up, bend the elbows as you draw the strap, the belt behind your back. And inhaling up. I'm just turning around. So drawing those elbows down. So keep a little bit of space, ideally, between the belt, the scarf, whatever you're using, and the back of your head. So at any point, if it feels too tight, allow your arms to release a little out to the side. And have a bit of tension. So having not a bit of a floppy sensation, but have a bit more force between the left and the right hand. So you can lift and lower. You can stay also here for a few breaths. Notice if your head tilts forward. So ideally keep the head back so the chin is about parallel to your legs. Good. So once more, that brings that openness into the chest, into the shoulders. So if we are doing it standing, we may feel we are tilting forward. So here it's really that focus on the upper back, on your arms. Good. Last one here. And then release the belt down. Have a little bit of a release, a bit of a shake, any movement. So you can keep your belt on your chair and moving into that twist. So those different movements of the spine are that side bend, the forward fold, back bend, and the twist, like that rotation. Good. Good. Coming back towards the center. Take your belt once more into your hand, any position that feels good. So we're coming back up. Bring the arms behind you and moving from here into a little bit of a twist. So see how that feels. Perhaps from the center on the exhale, rotate the torso to the left. Coming back on the inhale, rotating the torso towards the right on the exhale. While you're holding the strap behind the back of your head. Good. Last one here. And then releasing your arms down. You can release this, put the strap away. Good. So almost starting with the feet. So you can lift your foot, you can rest the heel on the floor and moving through your ankle joint. So you're literally coming back up as we meet them back at our hip. So flexing, pointing, circling, one direction, maybe then the opposite direction. If you want to make it harder, lift your foot, keep the foot lifted and circle. Again, we're all different. So you can keep that foot on the floor. The moment you lift it, it's harder. If you lift, notice if you're collapsing. So keep the posture that comes from the core. Ah, good. Second side. So the kind of the most basic posture is always, or movement is always on the floor. So you can lift, circle, breathe. So even if you might lift and if you, I can do it, notice if you're breathing. Change direction, flex, point. Building fire in the body. Good, coming back down. One more. So we take 3 deep breaths in through your nose, into your belly, exhale, out through an open mouth. Inhale through your nose, exhale. Last one, you inhale through the nose, exhale. So visualize how that excess air again releases. Keep your feet on the floor, lift and lower your heels. So you can lift, lower, you can even bring your feet a little forward. So you're lifting the toes, lifting your heels. It wakes up your calves. So if you find yourself sitting for long periods of time, come into those lift heel lifts and toe lifts. As that activates blood flow in your legs and also strengthens your ankles. Good, one more here. And then coming back down. So any movement here. Oh, just a very gentle toe, rounding your toes. So without doing it weight bearing. So allowing to roll onto the tops of your toes, onto the toenails, literally. So it could be very delicate movement. If you want to stay a little bit longer, that perhaps creates a little bit more of a stretch on the top of your foot. Feel free to stay there. Breathe through it. So waking up the feet. Good. And then change, or before you actually change sides, sit comfortably once more, adjust your posture, connect to your breath, and drop your mind's eye into the foot we just worked with. So kind of, what do you notice? So if you feel maybe something, some warmth, something that's tingling, we're working on those deeper layers, but through the physical body, through the physical layer. Good. Second side. Again, take it slowly, especially so toes with shoes, they become a little bit more, they become a little stiff. So we are literally not made wearing shoes. So kind of gentle rolling. Again, at any point you can hold that posture, hold that position of your toes a little bit longer. Breathe through that stretch. If you get a cramp, perhaps shake it out to anything that feels familiar to come back out of that cramp. Good. One more movement here. And then once more pause. Drop your sensations into your feet. Noticing posture. Good. Perhaps take those deep belly breaths. So really feel how much more capacity you have to breathe when we change the way we sit. Lovely. And then come back into this room. So we're doing a little bit of I call it the toilet test. So we're moving up to standing, which then also includes the rest of the joints, so the knees. So imagine you're sitting on a toilet and you actually want to get up. So perhaps keep that posture. So keep a distance between your bottom and your chair. So the bottom reaches back, your weight is equally distributed in your feet. Breathe here, hold. So notice if your thighs begin to burn. Good. One more breath here. And then on the exhale, push back up to standing. So I think it's even a skill we don't really think about, because the moment we lose strength in our legs, we literally just flop back onto the toilet. So it takes literally skill to actually sit back on that toilet. Of course, we're probably not that far away, but you get the idea. So you can always train it. You can increase the time you hold as you hover, which brings a little bit more heat into the body, and it engages your legs, which in turn also helps support the lower back. So you can this time then slowly sit back. Good. So I teach you life skills. So it has to have a purpose. So last one here, but then we come up to standing. So we are holding for about 30 seconds if that feels good. If it feels too strong, or if you feel the heart is working too hard, come straight up to standing, please. So preparing yourself, tilt your upper body slightly forward, begin to lift your bottom. Find that posture here where you almost hover and breathe. Good. So it's a subtle way of building strength. So focus perhaps on your breath, on the feet on the ground, maybe wiggle your toes. Good. Lovely. A few more breaths here. And then on the next exhale, come back up to standing. Good. You can put your chair away. So in a way, we warmed up our knee joints. Let's have a little bit more of a wiggle. So almost imagine you're kicking a ball away. So that kind of knee kind of release. So keep it a bit more floppy. So unlike the shoulder joint, which is a ball and socket joint, as it really rotates, the knee is a hinge joint. So it doesn't rotate that much. It does rotate a little bit. So you can make it a balance. You can even use the chair to let the movement come from your knee. Again, notice if your hip moves. So see if you can isolate that movement from your knee joint. You can kick again, so that's it, forward, backward, circling it slightly. So there's still some mobility in terms of not as flexible as the shoulder joint, but still quite able. So as you balance here and circle or warm up your knee joint, it still strengthens that standing leg. Oh, good. Second side. So again, you can make it a balance. Start with that kick again if you haven't already kicked, and then subtly isolate that movement. So we are bringing it more purely out from the knee joint. So I notice I'm circling my ankle, thinking I can make my knee circle more. You know, those differences, but the knee joint is not as mobile as the shoulder joint. Good. And then coming back to center. So we're meeting here again, the part that's actually the most important part. So begin to circle here your hips. You can rotate, you can also go through your knees, but focus more on this area here, your core. So you may want to have more of a stretch for the outer hip. You can make a certain shape with your body. Maybe it's the figure of 8, so or that infinity sign. So the moment we visualize, it even helps bringing movement into the body. Also change the way you draw that 8, so going the opposite way. So less linear, but more, let's say, circular. Good. And then bring it together. So for balance, you can always come back to your chair. Once more, that hip joint. So we did do the outer hip, the part that connects the torso. Now the part that connects your thigh bones. So which naturally then leads us into the balancing pose, into tree pose. So you can hold on to your chair, to the wall, and notice if you're turning. So that in itself could also maybe put strain on your knee joint. So let that movement purely come from your thigh bone that connects to your pelvis. So once it's warmed up, it's oiled, keep it pointing out or keeping in that posture where you can move into balance. So adjust perhaps your foot, you can lift it up. So apart from the knee joint, you can come into any height. If you want to challenge yourself, you can even plug it into your thigh here. Opposite forces. So the foot presses into your standing leg. And notice if you're dipping the hip out to the side. So lift up. So that in itself takes that strength. Sometimes women, they love to stand like this. So in a way, it wears out that hip. So find your balance, even if you have one hand on a chair, you can bring your arm up out to the side. Any branches make it maybe difficult, maybe given we work with wind. So keeping the lower body stable, bringing that element of flexibility, mobility into the upper body. So make it come into your expression of tree pose. So once more those roots go down, that gives you that freedom to be more flexible in the top part. Lovely. And then coming back out of your posture. Second side. So again, warming up. You can the way for you to know if you're compensating, if you keep almost your hands pointing forward, so they're like an extension from your hip bones. And if your hands turn, you know that you're adjusting, compensating. So as you keep your knee just pointing out, which maybe not as far as you thought you would be when you turn, but that's when you're doing it the right way. Good. So it might be harder work, but it's worth it. Good. And then find that balance. So rest the heel against your shin. You might want to lift it, press those feet against one another, bring that stability into your upper body, tree pose. And visualize what type of tree you want to be. So you might even want to rise up, have your branches up, out, and about. As you balance, you might even want to bring those fingers into, you can even bring fingertips towards one another as you balance. So having the thumb connecting with each of your remaining fingers. So it gives you focus, good balancing. Remember, if you're hip dipping, then lift up, breathe. Ultimate challenge, close your eyes. Good. So trees are grounding. They are stable, but also adjusting to whatever weather condition is out there. Lovely. One more breath here. Oh, and then come back down. Good. Almost bringing it all together. Have your version of the standing twist. So we're literally working once more with the vertebrae, spine. So keep that flexibility also in your feet, in your knees. So if you have your feet too firmly planted, there's maybe a little bit of a pull on your knee. So explore if you have the space, different arm heights. So having arms lower down, a bit like a corkscrew, brings the twist further down. The moment you bring your arms up a little bit, you work the twist up into the higher areas, upper areas of your spine. Good. And then without stopping abruptly, let the movement just become a little smaller and slower. Good. Notice how you feel. Maybe it feels less clicky, maybe it feels more space, maybe you feel less tense. So those little things, it still helps the joint releasing movement. So once more, a little bit of strength. So on your yoga mat or even on a non-slippery surface, take your feet out a little bit wider, please, those Charlie Chaplin feet, and bend those knees. So more of an inner thigh stretch. So any standing postures, especially where the feet and the legs are working a little bit more, a little harder, bring those earthy grounding qualities into the body. So again, your choice here, whether you want to come up and down or if you want to stay here. So if you want to stay here, use the breath. So you probably notice immediately how it brings that heat into the body. Additionally, maybe you want to lift one heel up. So strengthening muscles you probably didn't know you had. At any point, come back out, have a little bit of a wiggle. Last one here. Good. Oh, and then find your way back up. A little bit of a stretch, a little bit of a kick. So to transition to the floor, you can come again, see how you feel. You can move through a downward dog from the back of your mat if you want to have a little bit of a stretch, or just transition onto the floor. And you can come straight onto your back into the posture where you have your knees hugged in towards your chest. If you want a little bit more of a stretch, change of perspective, and really feel into those areas that connect with the floor. So it's your hands and your feet. So everything else is literally floating in the air. If you're still walking your dog, so perhaps slowly allow also the body to transition down towards the earth. Keep before you completely settle, perhaps bring that strap a little closer to you, please. So you're not having to move again. So allowing yourself to come onto your back. Notice actually if your neck or if your chin is overstretched. So I'm just exaggerating here. If you find yourself lying more like this, so bring your chin a little closer. Maybe you actually might find a blanket helpful. So we're not doing anything that brings weight onto the neck, onto the back. So you can rest the back of your head on the blanket. Good. So one more, perhaps rocking here. And then allowing your knees to remain above your belly. So even from the digestive point of view, air can be trapped in the digestive system. So it's then bloating or anything that feels gurgly. So that then what we're doing now, we've done it before, I probably haven't just emphasized it too much. It's that knees to chest pose. So on the exhale with that slight squeeze, we're adding a little bit more pressure. Inhale, guide your knees away from your belly. So exhale, you bring the knees back in. Inhale, you guide your knees away from the body. On the exhale, we literally release any excess air through the body. Inhale, we make a little bit more space. So inhale away with your legs, with your knees. Exhale, bring them closer. So some of you might be maybe even familiar from baby massage. So those are even movements that are being done with small children. You can actually still do them with bigger children. So as adults, we literally do it as ourselves. So it lengthens the back, and that brings a bit of that squeeze and release into the body. So exhale towards, knees move towards the chest. Inhale, the knees move away. Good, last one here. Exhale with a gentle squeeze. Inhale, move your knees away. Bring your left foot down. The right leg hovers. Bring your belt, the scarf, even whatever you use around the arch of your right foot. And extend that leg up towards the ceiling. So we're stretching the hamstring. And find a comfortable position for your arms, for your upper back. So avoid really, if it's possible, avoid having your arms and your shoulders quite tight, quite tense. So allow your arms, your hands just to slide down the belt. So that your emphasis is purely on your leg. And connect back to your breath. So letting the belly rise again on the inhale. Full nourishing breaths. And exhaling, feeling the belly deflating. Perhaps even have a slight squeeze as you exhale to bring deeper, fuller breaths back into the whole body. The way to a more peaceful state is through all those different layers, is through releasing tension in the physical body and working with the breath to literally access the mind. And the breath naturally also influences all the different systems in the body. Good. 2 more breaths as you hold that strap around the right foot. And from here, keep your leg exactly where it is. Bring your left leg in, change over. So like a relay, let the left foot take over. Bring the right foot down. And once more louder, your body to soften in that on for the second side. Whichever foot you're working with. So despite perhaps quite strong sensations, allow the breath to be smooth and regular. So with time, that posture starts to feel a little bit more accessible, a little easier. If in doubt, bring your awareness back to the breath. Good. 1 more breath in that on the second side. And then slowly release your equipment. Bring both feet down. Keep the soles of your feet on the ground. Navigate to the outer edges of your mat. And just a gentle windscreen wiping of your legs. So without achieving it, you can keep it quite gentle, keep it quite floppy, jelly-like, soft. So arms can be out to the side. Perhaps you want a little bit more of a release for the lower back, for the side. So even that rocking here, which you could do for 10, 15 minutes, if you wish, is a good way to transition into the rest and digest state, that peaceful state. Good. Yeah, maybe just a couple of more of those leg drops. Good. And then eventually bring that movement to stillness. Keep the feet a little wider. Allow your knees to drop towards one another. So like where the knees fall towards one another. That releases also those breathing muscles, any abdominal muscles. Bring your hands onto your lower abdomen, around the navel center or between the navel center and the pubic bone. And once more, direct the breath into your lower belly. So see if you can slow down your breath. So slowing down the breath means you take longer, fuller inhales and actually slower. You literally take longer to breathe in and breathe out without straining the breath, but just turning down the speed by which you inhale and exhale. So sense all the different areas of your body making contact with the floor. So the more areas of your body are connecting to the earth, the more grounded, the more supported, safe, stable we feel. Continue to let the breath flow into your lower abdomen. Eyes can be closed so you can have a soft gaze. And then eventually let your breath return to its natural rhythm. Allowing the body to feel a little heavier. So sensing how the whole weight releases into the earth. The inhale brings a certain expansion into the front body. As the exhale allows you to sink a little deeper into the floor. If your mind is active again, come back to your breath. The sensation of the breath flowing in through your nose and out through your nose. The only muscle that's working here more actively is your diaphragm. So in your own time, begin to invite deeper, fuller breaths back into all the different areas of your body. Maybe have a bit of a yawn. Maybe wiggle your fingers. Maybe stretch your arms up overhead. Maybe even stretch your legs away from the body. Wiggle maybe. Good. And then you can bend both knees again, guide them into your chest, into your belly, letting them hover here once more. You can rock on your back from side to side. You can also remain resting on the floor if you wish. And then slowly allow yourself to roll over to one side. So stay in that recovery position. So that's the best way to get out of the system without overwhelming the nervous system. Enjoying the bit of a side lying. So that's always possible, especially if it feels uncomfortable lying on your back. Side lying with your head support is always a good option. And then from here, help yourself back up into any seated position. Oh, good. So I hope you feel a little freer, you feel a little less congested, less clicky. And bring your arms once more up towards the ceiling. Grab all the good stuff. Bring it back into your heart center. Bow your head towards your heart, thanking yourself for making time this morning. Namaste. Thanks for joining.